with Sridhar, Pappu. Great book with Hardcourt and Mifflin. And we have just looked at the play again on MLB Productions with Brock on a play at the plate. Sunny day, middle of the game, Lolich pitching, trailing, big out, everything else. Cardinals up 3-1. Need one more win to win a World Series. And he should have slid, number one. And number two, you can argue that he was safe on the play. It's a very bang-bang play. Give me your thoughts. Go ahead.
Well, Brock argues that he's safe, but then, as Bill Freehan has said, why does he go and try and touch the plate again?
Because he thinks that Freehan didn't tag him, basically, right? What do you think? You think he's out or safe on the play?
I think he's out.
You do?
Yeah.
You think if we had replay today, you think they would confirm the out on the call by the home plate umpire?
I think they would. I think they would.
They would. And how about the idea if he slid? Do you think he would have been safe?
I think he would have been safe.
Do you think it was the big play of the World Series?
It's hard to say because, these moments we say, oh, this is the definitive moment because everyone points to that moment. But the Cardinals were still winning. They were still up one run. A
run in the game.
Yeah.
And up 3-1 in the series.
And 3-1 in the series. And so, these momentum swings that you say back in hindsight, oh my God, this was when things changed. In the course of the game, I don't know how
I agree with
was.
that. I think you're making an excellent point there. I think if you look at it 30 years later and you look at it a month later, you say, geez, they scored that run there, they win, and it's a famous play. It's Lou Brock out at the plate the whole bit. But I think if you watch the game and were watching that series at the time, I don't know, with a lead anyway, you got Gibson sitting there in Game 7, and you got 2 games in a row at home, I don't know if you would have said to yourself, wow, that play cost us the World Series.
Yeah, and it's also the middle innings. It's not in the ninth inning, and the score wasn't tied, and that wasn't the winning run. And so, a lot is made of that play because obviously, had they scored the extra run, and it was so dramatic, but. It's one of those things that baseball will point to a particular moment. We all point to Carlton Fisk hitting that home run, and
they lost Game 7. I say that all the time.
Yeah.
It's a little. All right, so the Tigers go back to St. Louis. They bury him in Game 6. He decides to go to Lolich on short rest in Game 7. Lolich pitched Game 5. He had McClain. He could have gone to in Game 4. Why did Mayo Smith, the Tiger skipper, go to give the ball to Lolich? He won now 2 World Series games, but McClain won 31 games. So was McClain hurt? Why did McClain go in Game 7?
Well, McClain ended up pitching Game 6.
He did on 2 days rest. I apologize.
Yeah, well,
he went back to his guys on short rest.
Yeah, and one of the things was after Game 5, they didn't know who was going to start Game 6, and McClain, I think, took a cortisone and came out. They scored 13 runs.
Won
the
game 13-1.
Yeah. And he goes to Lolich and asks him to pitch on 2 days.
It's funny. Here is a guy, and I had forgotten he pitched Game 6. That's a bad error on my part. Here is the scenario now. Think about it for a minute. He has a great year. He wins 31 games. The whole world's talking about him. And the game that he wins in a World Series, you almost forget about the fact that he pitched.
Yeah.
Because they scored 13 runs.
Yeah.
And so you almost forget them. Look at me, I forgot.
Yeah.
You forget McClain pitched to Game 6 and he had won 31 games. You would think, wow, look at McClain, elimination, wins a big game. Did he go all the way in that game? Probably went all the way in that game.
Yeah, he went all the way.
There you go. And you almost forget the fact that he got them even in that series because they scored the 13 runs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, afterwards, Denny said, "Look, yes, they scored a ton of runs, but
somebody's got to pitch.
Someone's got to pitch, and I came out here, and
short rest,
and I did my job."
Was there any debate at all about giving the ball to Lolich in Game 7?
I think some people thought Earl Wilson might be able to go. It was just kind of a mess at the end of Game 5. There was all sorts of indecision about who was going to get that ball. A lot of people thought that maybe someone would go in Game 6 and then McClain would start Game 7 and pitch partway, and maybe Lolich would pitch in relief. And it really wasn't decided until Game 6 that was in hand that Lolich was going to go Game 7.
You think about it in a lot of ways, and a lot of it's because Curt Flood, slipped on the wet turf.
Yeah.
A lot of it's, Detroit has only won a couple championships in the last 40 years, whatever it might be. But that is and McCarver says he'll take that series to his grave. That is a very famous game. Everybody knows about that game. Gibson, Lolich, St. Louis, Game 7, 2-0, seventh inning. Flood falls down trying to catch a Jim Northrup triple. Lolich goes all the way. You know, I know there are more famous Game 7s. We know about Smoltz and Morris. We know about in certain scenarios with the Yankees and McCovey in 1962. But in its own right, that's the fact they beat Gibson with a guy on short rest went all the way. I think he gave up 1 run in the ninth inning.
Yeah,
that's a very unheralded game in the history of Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it is, and it shows, what a great pitcher Mickey Lolich was, and it's remembered more for Curt Flood falling than Lolich, going all the way and ending up winning, 3 games as he did, and so the surprising thing about that game is you would expect Gibson to be upset, especially at Flood, and he wasn't. And to this day, he defends Flood and said,
wet field, tough play, the whole bit, right?
Yeah, and said, who else would have caught that ball? No one. So,
and a lot of people also think that was the beginning of the end of Curt Flood in his career. Now, he played another year in St. Louis, but then he got traded, and we all know about the Supreme Court, didn't want to go to Philadelphia and everything else. In a lot of ways, that is almost the finishing coup de grace. Curt Flood was a very good player, but that is almost, that's how he's remembered, and that's like his most famous moment ever. This last one was that play off the Northrup play in the 7th inning.
Yeah, and it's a shame, for someone who's considered, perhaps the best defensive player of the 1960s, or at least best defensive center fielder. And Judy Pace Flood in the great HBO documentary,
which I saw was good. Yes,
said that he would play that moment in his mind over and over and over and over again, and yeah, that's what we remember him for.
You can find that. I'd like to see it. It was 2-on when he hit the triple. It was 0-0 at the time. They got runs later in the game too.
Yeah,
it was 0-0 top 7. When you looked at the play over and over again, was it a ball that should have been caught?
There's no way he could have got that. Not with that field. And also, that ball went a long way. And so
Northup hit left center, was it not?
Yeah. And, where Flood was positioned, how far that ball was hit, he was not going to get to that ball.
So, in other words, he gets the abuse, but he doesn't deserve it from that standpoint.
No.
When you talk to McCarver, does he still talk about the anguish of letting that series slip away?
Yeah. And if you talk to a lot of the Cardinals, I mean, of course, there's anguish about that series slipping away. The one thing that McCarver has said is, that he has said, oh, well, we thought that maybe we, because we had Gibson in Game 7.
They relied on him too much.
But you talk to other people on that team, and they'll tell you it's like, no, if we had won Game 6, we were going to win Game 6. It's just they just got walloped that day, and so this idea that somehow the team was going to let up because they knew they had Gibson in Game 7. To a lot of his Cardinal teammates, it just didn't fly.
All right, now here is the play. Show it again, Eddie, if you could. You know what? He could have caught that. Sridhar, he could have caught that. Watch now. This is Northup. Look. Yeah, that ball's caught. Yeah, he also broke the wrong way.
He broke the wrong way, and he's playing on a wet field.
If you watch this again, out to left center, it's straight away center field. Yeah, he's got to catch that.
Yeah.
I got to be fair. I mean, I haven't seen that play in 100 years. Sridhar, he's got to catch that ball.
Yeah.
You agree?
I think so. I mean...
So Gibson kept his mouth shut. He could have been, geez, how do we not catch that? I don't know if there was 2 outs in the inning. I'm not sure of what the series was in that 7th inning there. But, he catches that ball. They probably go bottom 7 scoreless, right?
Probably, yeah. I mean, the question is, will the Cardinals be
ever going to score a run?
Yeah.
Which is the story of their year.
Yeah.
It was 2 outs, so he would have been out of the inning. Let's take a quick break. Got one more to get to, and then we're going to wrap up from 68 and see what they did as far as 69 is concerned. As we continue, the year of the pitcher, 1968, Mad Dog Unleashed, back after.